Welcome. Pam Laricchia from livingjoyfully.ca, and today I'm here with Sarah Peshek. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Pam.
Sarah is an unschooling mom of 3 kids, and I'm really excited to learn more about her experiences so far. So to get us started, Sarah, can you share with us a bit about you and your family and what everybody's interested in right now?
Sure, thanks. Let's see here. So my children are 11, 8, and 2 right now. My oldest is Rosa, and she's coming up on 12 here in August, so pretty close, but not quite yet. And she is she's very much into a lot of her gaming right now. Well, she for years, but right now she's into Sims and Animal Crossing, and so those are keeping her really, really busy. And she uses Discord all the time to stay in touch with friends, and so she's great. She's just doing her thing, and then Evelyn is my middle child. She's 8, and she loves Roblox. That's one of her favorite games right now. And she's loving the summer because she's really into biking, and she's learning how to sort of bike by herself in our neighborhood a little bit, which she really is enjoying. And she loves in the summer catching bugs and, sort of being out and catching all sorts of creatures and things. So she really enjoys this time of year, as long as it's not too hot. So that's kind of her. And then my little guy, Marcus, is 2, and he is, he's really having sort of that word explosion right now, where he is just like every day there's a few new things he's never said before. And it's such a treat. He's into cars. Cars are his favorite toys. And so he plays with cars all day, and he's just starting to tell us all about it. And so it's really fun. He's a very active little guy. And so he's also enjoying, the nice weather here in Ohio. And so, yeah, that's kind of, and then as far as my husband and I've been doing a lot of sewing and crochet lately. So I've kind of been into that type of thing. And my husband, he's into music. My husband, Chris, he's a music guy. A lot of the live opportunities aren't there right now. So he's been exploring different ways to kind of connect with that community virtually, which is interesting. And he's also building a tree house with the girls. That's kind of the summer project. So it's just starting. They've just put the big bolts in the tree, and they're cutting wood. And so that's sort of, I'm mostly just the photographer and cheering them on, but it's so going to be so cool. So that's sort of the big family thing for this summer that's going on. So into the fall, it looks like it's, it's not going to be a quick project, but there we are. There you have it.
Oh, that's lovely. That's lovely. I can connect so much to so much of that. I mean, we're still having a lot of fun with Animal Crossing. And we found like building your island and, being able to, that was something new for Animal Crossing, being able to do all the landscape.
Right.
So,
oh my gosh. Rosa's island. It's great. She let me have a little house. So I don't have my own account. We just have the one Switch, but I've got my own little house in her thing. And so she showed me how to do some of the things, but I can handle, that one's not too hard for me to navigate, so I can handle Animal Crossing if she's helping me. So yeah, fun. Exactly. It's a fun one. It's so.
That's right. I can appreciate the more difficult ones, but Animal Crossing, I can dive. Yeah. I can fish.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
I can shake fruit trees with the best of them. And the treehouse too. We've been talking about that as well. That's something, that's been on the back burner for years, like we've talked about, but we haven't stepped forward. So
yeah, we kind of were on the fence, but I just told my husband, of all the years, let's just do it. Like, we're home a lot, and we're not doing a lot of other things that we might normally be doing, and so let's just try it. And so then once he got into it, now he's super into it, and it's going to be it's going to be pretty awesome, I think. So it's exciting.
Yeah. That's one thing that's so fun, right? Is that ideas pass through. Sometimes they bubble up and down over and over. And what's just really curious and fun is seeing when one catches a spark and somebody, kind of grabs the ball and takes it further, like there's no like expectation or upset that, gee, we were talking about this and nobody did it. But it's good because if somebody's like upset, then they're more of an advocate for the idea, right? They will be the one that's an advocate. But if nobody kind of picks it up and starts running with it, we're running with other things at the time. But you just come with an environment where this one bubbles up to the surface and says, now seems to be a really good time for it. That's really cool.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think he probably wouldn't have done the project if I wasn't kind of, putting that kind of fanning it. But at the same time, I probably wouldn't, I would have just thought about it and not ever really done it. So it was really good sort of teamwork that we are able to kind of now have this thing that's happening and we both have our own little pieces of it. So
exactly. That's awesome. So I would love to know how you discovered unschooling and chose to follow that path.
Sure. So my oldest daughter, Rosa, went to kindergarten and first grade. And I used to be I'm a former school teacher. So the year that she was in first grade, I was working at a different school. Mm-hmm. And, in the spring, I was really trying to figure out what I was going to do with her for the next year, because if I stayed at the school where I was teaching, it was a private school, and she could come there and be there, or she could stay at the public school where she'd gone to kindergarten and first grade. And I spent, a month going back and forth, and I would decide one thing, and then something would happen and I'd be like, I can't do that thing. Yeah. I can't bring her here to this place that I'm working. That's just not going to work. And then she's going to stay at her school, and then something would happen there. And I'd say, oh, I just don't think she can stay there, and back and forth and back and forth. And then there was this day where at work, my work, I had a mom emailing me about her son, and he wasn't getting the grades that she expected him to get. And it kind of hit me that I didn't have any answer I could give her that I felt good about why that was, because he was a super smart kid, super fun. And it just, I don't know, it was almost just this moment where I was like, I am taking part in doing all these things that I don't feel right, that aren't, and a lot of teachers are doing a lot of great things, but I'm expecting these kids to do things that aren't in their best interests. And I'm just having to, because of the system, I'm having to do things that I just don't think are right. And I don't think I can keep doing that. And I came home, and my daughter said to me, she got home from first grade, and she said some kid had made fun of her Tinkerbell shoes and told her she was a baby for liking Tinkerbell, and she's 6 years old. And I was just like, it was all on the same day. And I was just like, you know what if we do so, what if we do something totally different? What if we homeschool? And it was like, as soon as I had that thought, all of the stress I'd been having and going back and forth just like disappeared. It was just like, yes, that is the thing to do. That is what's going to work. And let's just try it. My husband said, sure. And so that was kind of, it was a very distinctive day when I decided to bring her home. We finished out that school year because I was under contract and all of that, but I knew that in the fall it was not, she wasn't going to go back. And then we started with a school, a very schooly at home approach. And because I was a teacher, so that was, we were kind of going to do the thing, do all the things, and it was going to be great. And it did not take me long to see that that was also not going to work. I tried tweaking things sort of all fall. And it was just not, it was not clicking, and I could see it. I had my kids right in front of me, and I could see that the time that I was spending trying to get them to do my ideas of lessons, the things that I thought were important, it was not, that goal that I brought into, let's keep her home where learning can really happen, was not happening. She was trying to do as little as she could to kind of get by and please me. And I was just sort of left, like, what, I was sort of lost for a while, and I just kept plugging away, and I sort of, because of then some stressors that were coming into our relationship, I started sort of reading a little bit more about a peaceful parenting approach, and this idea of sort of being a partner, a coach, and not being sort of coercive with the kids, and it all kind of went together there to kind of help me develop then all sort of at once. But the idea of the learning kind of, it just was looking at what was happening and seeing that it wasn't clicking, and seeing the contrast in when she was doing what really was bringing her joy and lighting her up. And I could see that that's where the learning was. And so, it was really just following her that led me to see, okay, I think this unschooling idea that seemed really crazy at first, there's really something there, and I need to dig a little deeper to find out what that is.
Whoa. Oh, I love that. It's right from the beginning, right? Where I love that back and forth, right? When, you were teaching one school, she was in another, and that it was just boomeranging back and forth. And you could see neither one of them was jumping out as the right thing, like didn't grab your heart,
Right. Exactly.
Until home, and then homeschooling. It's like, okay, like let's totally blow this all up. Like, what's bigger?
Exactly. Right. Exactly.
You realize,
exactly. And then,
like, you're choosing like just different lenses of the same thing, and then that moment where your mind just opens up to more possibilities, and you latch onto that. That is so interesting. Right. Yeah, so
it was interesting. It was interesting. It was much the same as it was all just kind of watching her, and so she really kind of led the way by just doing, just sort of living her life, kind of helped me see where that wonderful stuff was going to be. So because then you're not, when you're out of the classroom, right? And now you're at home, and you're doing what the teaching, right? And the stuff that you want them to learn and everything. But now you're actually with one person. You're with your child, right? Who you care about and love and everything. And now you're seeing what this really looks like in action with one child. Right. It's so fascinating. Right. Well, right. All of those pieces, the classroom management pieces, and all of the things that teachers have to kind of do to keep things rolling, none of that was there. And so, so then I'm just left with
the learning,
like just my kid and the learning, and where is that happening? And so that's really interesting.
It is really interesting too. And I mean, I feel that feels very familiar to me too, because I mean, I wasn't a teacher, but once my kids were home from school, that's what I did many years of school. So to me, that's what learning was, right? So even though I was, going at it much more easygoing, I still had workbooks, and I was still trying to coax them to come to a little bit of work. And it's funny what I had seen in my son doing the minimal amount of work, knowing that it could be so much better. His grades could be so much higher, because I knew the person, the child he was at home, yet when it came to having to perform for somebody else, it was not important to him, and he would be as minimal as possible, right? So when you can see that juxtaposition, that you see so much learning happening when they're doing their things, and then you try to coax them, and they're just doing minimal amounts to try and keep us happy, right? It's amazing those two things.
And it was, Yeah, it was really interesting because in school, she was a very good student. She would, she was always trying to make the teacher happy. And, so that sort of was like, took me some, I had to look closely at that. Well, why was it that she was, she would kind of gladly just do whatever they said. And here at home, she's dragging her feet, and so I think that, I don't know for sure, but I think a lot of the difference was just that relationship piece, and, the fact that I'm mom and I'm not supposed to be for, and there it was a totally different paradigm of expectations. And here she was trying to kind of blend that with our home relationship and seeing these things that just didn't add up, and it wasn't consistent. And so, that was very,
Yeah. When you think of it that way too, like she is performing to meet the expectations of the teacher in the school system, and at home she could be herself and have her
exactly
own
exactly. And so how do I want to respond to that? Do I want to respond to that by continuing to fight her and have it be my way, or do I want to lean into who she is and who she wants to be? So
that's beautiful. That's beautiful. So let's shift that just a little bit, because your daughters were 7 and 4 when you're making this shift. And like you said, when you started looking, you actually started looking at the parenting piece, right? Because you were looking at what was happening to your relationship with her when you were trying to do more school at home, right? So I'd be curious what that transition looked like when you were shifting away from that more conventional parenting to the supportive partnership kind of parenting. And how did you get that started? What did it look like?
It was tricky, very much, but I found a journal that I had written, and I'm going to read a little bit to you here, because I was thinking about kind of talking to you today, and I was thinking, how did I start? Gosh, I remember making this change, but how did I really dig into that? And so I'll just read this little piece to you and then chat a little bit about it, because I thought this was kind of interesting. I wrote, so this is December 31st, 2015. Today is the first day I am trying to be a fully attentive / peaceful / trustful parent. Chris and I talked last night about how we want to start building strong relationships with our children that are not based on our power over them. We talked about how it is impossible to truly control another person, so we are damaging our family dynamic by trying. So this morning, my answer is yes to them. I got them out the door without bossing anyone around, yelling, or threatening. My first control challenge came as we were heading out the door. Evelyn wanted to wear 2 different shoes. One had a little heel and one didn't. I knew it would not be comfortable for her, but she insisted it was. So I just stated that I wasn't sure how comfy it would be and let her go with it. Then when we went to Kmart, Rosa grabbed her new favorite Shopkins to take in. My alarm bells went off. It's too small. You might lose it. I said, are you sure you'd like to take those small special items in with you? Yes, Mom. Okay. Of course, she lost them. And then I turned the van around to go back in and look once we realized. I know that I cannot always accommodate her in that way, but I had nothing more important to do that day than to keep her as my partner instead of my enemy. We looked our hardest and couldn't find them, but we left our number with the clerk. So then I go on and kind of talk about the other parts of our day. But I thought it was interesting that I had written this thing about sort of my very first day, where I thought, okay, I'm going to try to just stop and just stop having it all be my way. And looking back on it now, I thought, actually thought it was really interesting how I started by saying yes, and I was trying to move toward, helping them kind of do what they want to do. But I can see now, 5 years later, that there was sort of a piece missing, I think, which was kind of helping them along. And so I think the process for me took some time. There was sort of, first I had to make this philosophical shift where I realized what I really wanted was to not be fighting them all the time. And then I had to stop fighting with them and forcing them. And then I kind of needed some experience and time to sort of learn how to fill that in with active support. So, looking back now, I think, well, sure, she's going to wear these uncomfortable shoes. I just grab another pair of shoes and it's no big deal. But at the time, to me, it seemed like such a huge deal to let her walk out the door with shoes that I didn't think were comfortable, because the day before I probably would have said, no, you're not going to wear those. I know it's not going to work. And she would have gotten upset and we would have had an argument, and we couldn't have gone until she did what I wanted. And it would have been this whole thing. So not controlling it was a good step and a good piece. But I thought it was so interesting how then now I look back and say, well, yeah, but then she needed somebody to just grab the comfortable pair of shoes. It doesn't have to be a whole thing. Just grab the shoes and take them with you. And then I'm actively supporting her as opposed to just not controlling. And so it was kind of, I think the process was similar to that throughout sort of that whole first year or two, where it took me time because I was really worried about so many things with them, and I was right about a lot of things, like my adult brain says, okay, you're going to take these tiny little toys into the store. That's probably not going to go well. But I just kind of, didn't know what to do. So I just let her do it. And I don't know that I can hear you right now, Pam. Can you try to talk?
Hello.
Oh, there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Okay. Sorry. So, again, with maybe the Shopkins now, I would be, okay, well, let's use this special little bag so you could take them in and they won't be so hard to use. Or what if they go in my thing here that I'm carrying so we can make sure they don't lose them. And so I could see these very specific examples that I had on day one, how, how I didn't fight them anymore, which was great, but I also wasn't developed enough yet in my own sort of approach to really realize how I could make it easier on all of us. So it was definitely a learning process, but that's how I started. I started by just stopping having it all have to be my way. And that was hard for me. Because I thought I had a lot of really good ideas, and I probably did, but I wrote this other thing, I think the next day, something along the lines of, I feel like they're wasting their time, but it is their time, not mine. And so that sort of realization I had to come to, that their own journey, that I was trying to get all my wisdom that I had into their brains, both with academic things, but also just life experience. And I wanted to just force it all in. And that's not how it works. And that's not how I wanted it to work, And so, that was sort of my process. And so it was, there were challenges at first in the fact that I was just trying. I knew that what I was doing wasn't quite right. Like I knew that I wanted to stop fighting them and stop being their enemy. And I could sense that that's the direction I needed to go. But because I had never done it, it wasn't as easy as just stopping and then everything was magically glorious and perfect. It took experience of me seeing, okay, well, I'm going to let them do what they want, but what can I do to make it easier? What can I do how can I kind of be a good captain of the team here and kind of keep things smooth, and that became sort of the goal to some extent. But it was a long sort of couple years there of learning how to not only know philosophically what I wanted to be doing, but to actually practically be doing it. And to some extent, once I had the goal piece in mind, then it was almost just logistical things that I started to then get better at. And that helps make everything smoother. And then, the less and less then that I'm trying to control, the more that they could come to trust me, trust me that if I say, hey, I don't know if that's a great idea, I'm probably coming from a place of trying to help. And so, so that, our relationship has healed a lot in the past 4 to 5 years in that, they didn't trust me because I wasn't being very trustworthy before sometimes, because I was so focused on making things be the way I wanted them to be. And with their best interests in the back of my mind, but the methodology was just not supportive. And so they sensed that, and they didn't trust that I was in their corner because I hadn't proven that yet. And so once I took time and, and now it's so nice because now when we're talking about, making decisions, Rose is almost 12 and she loves to talk to me about decisions. And she says, she's even said to me, I trust you, Mom, to really tell me what you think is going to work. And I really care about what you think. And that's a huge change, from, and now she's matured several years too, but I know that a lot of it is also because I stopped trying to be the boss all the time. So
yeah, you've become trustworthy. Okay. I want to thank you so much for looking up that journal entry. That is spectacular.
thank you.
It shows it so beautifully, because I mean, that's what we've seen over and over again, right? When you want to make that change, you stop doing the thing you don't want to do. And what jumped out at me because if you argue over the shoes, like, this is the whole power paradigm thing. It becomes about the relationship and who's going to win. It's not about the shoes. The shift is in making it about the shoes, not about the relationship. It's making it about the shop, not about the relationship, right? So it's not, it's more about the power, shifting the power imbalance than it is about the actual things. And I love, like, I don't even know how possible it is to be able to make both those shifts at the same time. The shift of stepping away from power, and then the shift in, well, what do we replace it with? How can I support them? Like, those are two unique steps, right? And that just brilliantly.
Yeah, I thought it was so, when I found that, I just thought, that was really interesting. I thought it would be interesting to share because, I don't know. And I like, right. How could you, until you stop the control piece or, the fighting piece, you can't see the next step. You have to do the first thing. So
you have to do it. Like, that's when we talk about unschooling too, like how it can feel so much of a leap, right? At first, like a leap to the unknown. But you can understand it intellectually, but until you actually take the leap, like, and start, you really can't see what the next step is. Like, you have to do it. You have to be in it. You have to be paying attention. That's why we're just always encouraging people to keep going, right? And to keep thinking and to keep observing and paying attention and trying to be the best teammate that we can with our kids, right? Because if you do that first step and think you're kind of done, you can get stuck at that first step for a long time, which is much more chaotic, right? Because we're not really being helpful. We're just stepping away from being involved. And then they're very much left on their own to try.
And I can see how and if you tried that and didn't ever take that next step, you might think it doesn't work. It's crazy. It's,
it would be what we first imagined unschooling to be. That's nuts.
Right. But it takes time to kind of to grow into those different levels of sort of understanding your child. And all along, like you said, the observation piece is huge, watching them and seeing what's working and what isn't working. And that's, if you're doing that, then I think you're going to keep moving in the right direction toward the goal that you have, which is, if you're looking at unschooling, probably, peace in your home and learning, sort of joyful learning. And that's where you're heading. But
no, that was
gradual.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Sarah. So there was one other piece that I wanted to touch on with that. When our kids are a little bit older, when we start to make that shift, it can sometimes feel frustrating for ourselves, and we can, regret not having figured it out sooner, discovered it sooner. My oldest was, 10. Pretty much, he turned 10 just after he left school, right? So I definitely experienced those feelings of regret as well. So I would be curious if you experienced them, and if you did, how you kind of worked through that.
Yeah, I definitely experienced that. That might have been, sort of once I let go of the control piece of their learning and our relationships, that was probably the biggest thing for me that kept me from getting in the groove. Was really, I could see what I didn't want, and I could see how I had created all these situations that were not how I now want it to be. And so it was very frustrating to have changed my goals sort of, and to not have it all just magically go where I wanted to be. And there was a lot of regret for me in some of those times, and sort of a feeling that it wasn't fair. I didn't, I was having to feel like I was having to work so much harder than, other unschooling parents I would hear or read things they said. I'm like, well, if you've been doing it all along, it's so much easier. And then, so I think I just, well, one thing that really helped me start to let go of that was actually something my husband said to me. And I was sort of the person who did more of the reading and sort of moving toward unschooling, but he was always supportive. And this one day, I don't know how far into it we were, but I was expressing to him I had messed up that day, and I had, I yelled at somebody, or I did something I didn't want to do, and I was so frustrated because I knew it was, these habits I'd been building, and I had these ideals, and I was falling short, and I was so upset, and knew that, so much of it was based on what I had used to do, and I didn't want to do anymore. I'm going on, and he kind of said, well, look at what you're doing. You're learning as you're doing this. And so just like how you would accept that as the kids are learning something, it's not going to be neat and tidy and perfect. It's going to be messy, and there's going to be mistakes. And that's how learning really works. You're seeing it firsthand as you're learning, learning how people learn and how relationships work. And so I was like, wow, that's actually such a great insight into how this process is working. And I thought I can kind of be gentle with myself, because I am learning just like they're learning about whatever it is that's catching their interest. I'm learning about a bunch of different things through this process. And that's how it works. There are mistakes, and there are things that happen back when you didn't know better or different, and you can't change that. And so that was kind of something that helped me. And then I would just try to think, well, what are my options right now? I can't go back. I can't get those years back where I didn't do what I wish I was doing now. So, okay, all I can do is better. All I can do is better now, better than I did then. And tried to just really bring it to now as much as I could. So that's kind of how I worked through it. And there's still times where I think, what was I thinking? But it's all part of my process. And I think the kids are really forgiving, and it's not to say you do whatever you want and kids, it doesn't matter. But my kids, especially Rosa, being a little old, she was 7 and sort of an old soul. So she definitely knows that things changed, over the past few years. And so, I have apologized when I make a mistake, or even about, I'm sorry that I used to fight you about so many things, and I think that as I improved, it wasn't just words either, because she's been able to see me making changes and making those improvements. And so she recognizes that, and she seeing how they're able to forgive me and, see my growth. I think that's a great thing. Because that shows how change and transformation can happen. And so I think that's powerful in its own way. And so Rosa has her unique perspective as someone who's been to school and had sort of a change partway through her life. And Evelyn's perspective is a little different, and Marcus will be even different, and so, but, each time that I'm getting better at building the relationships, I think that they recognize that to some extent, and that has helped me be less regretful too, sort of recognizing how it helps them see change.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I love that. I love that piece about our expectations of us. And, we talked before about learning so much from our kids by watching our kids, right? I mean, that helped me work through, putting the expectations on myself, that I should do this perfectly now that I know. Right. But it really, I love the word practice, unschooling as a practice, because we're going to continue. We make mistakes, or, it's not even mistakes. It's like we do our best in that moment, and then we learn from it because of what happens after. Did it work out? How might we tweak it? Like for me, it's all about doing the best that I can in that moment, seeing what happens, and then tweaking for the next time a similar kind of moment arises. And I love the piece too about like how much for ourselves and for our kids that we can learn and change and become more the person we want to be at any age, right? They're seeing us learning new things and changing. And you're right, actions speak so much louder than words, right? We don't need to be telling kids, oh, I'm going to parent different. Like they don't need to know verbally what's going on, but they can sense it. And it may come up in conflict. They may make a comment, oh, before you would have gotten mad about this. If they're interested in making that observation, like sharing it verbally, and then conversations come up. But yeah, I think that's one thing. Sometimes we can be tempted to tell our kids, okay, no more rules, or things are changing now, I'm going to be so much nicer, all those, just be that, right? Because that is where you're actually going to show and develop trust. Trust isn't, you can trust me now. It's doing things that are trustworthy. Right? It's being that person. And then they know for sure, like you said, now she comes to you more often. She's very happy to hear your thoughts. But with that shift of power, she knows there aren't expectations with it anymore, that she must do what you think might be the best thing, you know what I mean? Or do what you would do in that situation. Like there's nothing wrong. It's lovely that she's gathering that information, but she knows it's still her choice in the end, right? Yeah, no, that is
definitely.
Yeah, that's the piece that helped me when I was moving through it too. We're all learning, and we're all continuously learning, right? And they saw me change as I learned more. Like I remember going around to each of them saying, hey, I just learned that you don't have to go to school. I literally never heard of homeschooling before. So, that was it. It's like, hey, I know something new now. Do you want to shift? So yeah, it's all part of it. And we are again who we are in this moment because of those moments. So you really can't, you don't know what would change if you,
right.
Very helpful.
Right.
So you mentioned your youngest, and you mentioned how it will be different from his perspective too, right? Because he was born after your shift in parenting style. So you have cultivated this more connected relationship with him from the beginning. So I'd love to hear a bit about what that experience has been like, and maybe what differences you've seen.
Sure. So, I mean, it's really wonderful to have the experience of, from all the way from, before he was born, just really trusting him and watching him and learning from him. And it's so neat to have that opportunity. And, he's I think that I've been able to really just truly just take joy from him, with him, in a way that I couldn't before, because I was always so worried about all the things. And so it's just really, really nice to just have the chance to just be with him, enjoy him, and trust in him. And he's, I think about things that maybe would have worried me. So I mentioned that he's sort of talking more and more right now, but he's, if you look at child development, it's on the later side of average when he's saying more and more words. He didn't say a lot for a while. And I can see how that could have really worried me. And I could have spent the past 6 months stressing out about that, trying to take him to experts and try to figure out what the problem was. And there is no problem. He's just on his own path of, and I think I would have missed the opportunity to see how he does communicate. And because I've really improved in my ability to sort of see all the things that the kids do as some sort of communication. I don't just have to hear their words. I can watch their actions. And I've been practicing that with the girls and, over the course of time. And so it's actually been so interesting to see the ways that he has found to communicate complex ideas to me without the words. But I can tell because I'm with him, I'm connected. I spend so much time with him. Like, oh, Marcus says he wants to go back to Nana's house because, he had fun playing with fire trucks there. Well, he can't say any of that, but, but he's got his different ways that his timing and his little, actions, signs, sort of his own version and a few words, and he can get such ideas across. And I know that if I would have been, looking at it from just comparing him to others or whatever, I would have missed where he really is and all the really cool thoughts he has. And, so it's really neat to just be able to kind of watch him and not be stressed and just trusting him that he's, I can see he's so engaged with life and so happy. And so that's the ticket. We're where we need to be. And another thing I noticed, is like safety sort of, he's very safety conscious as I have kind of like playgrounds or climbing things. I have tried to really just be there to support him if he needs it, but not tell him no, not say that's too big, that's too hard. And it's very different from how I was when my daughters were toddlers. And the way that he's developed his own sense of looking at something and deciding if it's a good idea or not, knowing that I'm there to keep him safe. And he, from a very young age, he would reach his little hand out to me if it was something that wasn't so safe, because he knew I was right there. But he also knew I can't do that by myself, and I couldn't believe how young he was when he started to develop that, when he had that trust piece of being able to look and decide, make a decision, and so he's very young still, but these are some things that I've already seen with him that are just so interesting from the perspective of, being a good partner to him and ways that he's developing his own little way of dealing with the world. And, it's really magical. I don't know. I think it's really fun and I really am enjoying it. And so
that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I love how, again, like we were talking about observing, right? And just paying attention how you could see so much going on for him and how capable they are from, like, you learn even younger ages, like literally younger ages, that he knows you're there, that trust is there, like, even seeing that in action is amazing. And the reminder that their timetable is theirs, right? That it really is okay that it's theirs. And I think, if, especially you mentioned, like, he's so joyful and he's having so much fun. If there were things that we're concerned about and they seem to also be concerned or upset or frustrated, then that's maybe a good clue to, go looking further. But,
sure,
they're happy in who they are and the things that they're doing, right? It is like, it's not a concern to them. Right. And so that is a great clue that their timetable is just fine for them. Right. I just love that. It made me think too about later readers. My youngest was a later reader too, but it didn't hamper him in any way. Right. When you're paying attention, he brought in information in so many other ways. Like you said, Marcus communicated to you in so many other ways that the words were not a big deal, and they're coming in their own timetable, and now you're having lots of fun with that. But yeah, imagine if you spent months and months worrying and stressing, and then you wouldn't have been with him as much, right?
Right, exactly. I would have been missing those moments. And I laughed because I thought if I had been doing that and, had been stressing when he was not stressing, then maybe I would be crediting an expert or a therapist or someone with his development when it would have just happened anyway when he was ready. And, right now he's adding those words. It was like one day, a couple weeks ago, he just started saying all the color names, and it's like he just decided he was ready to start saying them. And, but if we had been trying to like coach and train and have somebody telling us he needs to know this right now, then maybe I would think they deserve the credit, and whereas this way I see that he's the one who learned it and when it was right for him. And so that's so and like you said, it transfers to older experiences, younger, learning to walk, learning to talk, learning to read, all these things that they will do in their way. And it doesn't, just because it's not the same schedule as someone else, doesn't inherently mean that, you have a problem on your hands.
Well, and I love the way you said, like, now all of a sudden he's saying so many words, right? New words every day. Like, so it's not that what the typical path, like you said, he's learning it differently, right? Because he was bringing in those words and knowing what they were, so that now all of a sudden when the speaking part comes, boom, it's an explosion because he was just learning things in a different order. Yet if we're expecting him on this typical order and we're not seeing it, and like we're trying to get them back in that order that we expect, right? Then, so not only you're not seeing what he's doing, right? So all that other way that he's communicating, you're not looking for that because you're so much looking for what you're expecting him to do at that age, right? So then it looks even worse because then, you miss out on the communication he is trying to, that's just a brilliant example. Thank you. Of really trusting them and following, being the partner and the facilitator on their path. It's just a great way to look at it. And it's just a great example of how that trust in ourselves, it's like, it's a different timetable, but and very likely a different process. So it's not, so often it's not that they're stalled, it's that they're doing things in a different, unexpected order. You know what I mean? And so the kind of the marker that we're looking for isn't there, but there's all sorts of things going on under the surface that we can't see, and that's okay. And that's the trust piece, right?
Yeah. And it's not, I've met a lot of parents who, my kid was a late talker. He didn't talk. And so it's not necessarily uncommon. It's just, we sort of think it is. I don't know. So, I don't know. Yeah. It's interesting to wonder how many kids are taking different paths and not, we're not seeing it necessarily because we're expecting them to be on the expected path. So yeah, that's true.
Yeah, no. And I think especially in the more, unschooling-ish circles, when you bring something like that, there will be lots of other parents because they'll have noticed. They won't have seen it. Late readers are pretty common in unschooling circles, right? Because we're not, pressuring them to have a certain age that they need to read by. And, you can understand why that's an expectation in school because that's how they need to communicate, right? Reading and writing is really the only way to communicate within that system. But here, there are so many other ways out in the world that you can share ideas, you can gather ideas, that you can keep the whole communication thing can very easily be done in their style and on their timetable.
And that makes me think of Marcus too. If he was in a little daycare or preschool and not with me a lot, he might be struggling more if he didn't have the words, but because I'm right there and I can say, this is what he wants. I know his communication, that support piece is there. And it's the same with it, maybe a later reader. If you've got a caring adult there supporting you, making sure you can access the information, it's okay. It's a little different than if you're having to kind of fend for yourself.
Yeah, no, that's a
great point.
So I would love to know, what has surprised you most about your unschooling journey so far? What was unexpected?
I think I did go into it really expecting to develop our relationships and their learning. And so that wasn't too surprising. I think what has really surprised me is my own development, my own trust in myself, and my own growth and learning. And I didn't expect to be so transformed, as my own self. I went into it all thinking about the kids and trying to do what was best for the kids. And through doing that, I learned, how to be more thoughtful and how to be more deliberate about the things that I choose. And that gave me a lot more confidence in what I do. And so I don't, I don't flip flop around and try to make other people happy the way I maybe used to do. I just do what is right for our family and don't really worry about the rest. And that's a big shift for me, is to just really trust and have confidence in my own self and my ability to learn and to change and to be what my kids need too, so there was a lot of personal growth and transformation that happened that I did not go into it expecting at all. I really thought I was fine, and it was in my own way, but the change has been really healing, and just really learning that I've got this, and I can make meaningful change through my actions, and I, even though it's hard, I can still do it. And it was kind of shocking that I developed that sense, and I wasn't looking for it. So that was really, really cool.
I love that piece. And that you weren't looking for it, because I think that's it. We were already in a space where we felt, I don't know, like where we felt able to make the unconventional choice to not send our kids to school. Like that feels like a strong choice, but holy bananas, the empowering feelings that come from that whole transition, right? Like it's amazing. And it was completely unexpected for me. Like, especially growing up, we're an adult now, we're making choices, boom, we're done, we think. And
I think I expected that when I gave up sort of that control piece, that I was going to lose power somehow or lose myself. And it was the opposite. Really, I gained my own true strength through giving up that battling. I really found my own self, and it had been hiding underneath all the noise and chaos before. And so, yeah, it was there. It just needed me to be ready. So.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I got goosebumps from that.
Oh,
lovely, Whedon. Thank you so much, Sarah, for taking the time. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. It was great to chat.
And before we go, where can people connect with you online?
I am, my name is on Facebook. So if you're looking personally, there I am. And I also recently started a Facebook page and a TikTok account. Both are called at Unschooling Looks Like. And so it's really just sort of how things look in our house. So it's a lot of, pictures and comments on sort of learning in my house. So in a lot of local groups lately, there's a lot of people more interested in homeschooling, some unschooling, and they're saying, what does it look like? What do you do every day? And it can be hard to picture, I think. And there's a lot of writing about it, but I don't see as many pictures and little videos. So I thought I'd start kind of keeping track of things in that way. So there's that. So if you want to kind of watch us in action, Unschooling Looks Like on Facebook and on TikTok. My oldest daughter got me going on that. If it sticks around, we're there. So, and then also, my personal Facebook name as well is there. So that's where I'm at right now.
That's awesome. That sounds like a great idea. I love that idea to see it in action, because that is such a big question, right? What does it look like? What do you do? And so it's
hard to picture, and you can read about it, and that's one thing, but to sort of just every day sort of seeing, some of it's sort of boring, but at the same time, there's really interesting things going on. So I thought it would be cool to kind of share that with people who maybe haven't seen it. So, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. And I'll be sure to put links to that in the show notes. Thanks again, Sarah.
All right,
Have a wonderful day.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Pam. Same to you.